Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock. I was just telling this beautiful guest that I have joining me here that I'm going to do an intro for in a second, that this podcast is coming up on 8 years old next month. And I just had to throw that little tidbit out to all of you before we do our intro. So cool. So today I have with me Deb Miller, and she is small town girl, corporate exec, elephant rider, mom, and author. And we're here to talk about the book, which I was blessed to do the narration of the audiobook for. So welcome, Deb.
Thanks for having me here, Teri. I'm wondering when people are listening to this, if they notice that we sound a little bit alike, because that was part of the criteria when I was choosing a narrator. I wanted somebody that was from the Midwest, like me, and supposedly Midwest people don't have any accent, although they'll tell us that we do.
Right.
And so Teri is my twin in reading this book, and I thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I can't imagine the effort that you went through for this book. I feel like you wrote it too. So thanks
Oh,
for having me here today.
absolutely. And again, I feel honored to have been able to give voice to the audiobook. And, you know, I loved at the end, we figured out, oh, wait, if you send me the Russian pronunciations, because there's some Russian words in there that I know I was butchering. And even though I would go to Google and be like, type it in and be like, how to pronounce it? Well, you would get like 5 different pronunciations. And so I would like keep researching and try to find like, oh, these two say the same thing. So this must be it. And then it was like, no, that's not it, Teri.
Well, so Teri was so smart after a while. I would put in the transliteration like written, and I would try to say like the accents on the second syllable almost always in Russian words. That's a little tip for everybody. But then she said, why don't you just send me a voice recording of it like through text? And that was perfect. Once we did that, it was smooth sailing. And
Smooth
there
sailing.
are probably a couple dozen Russian pronunciations. So thank
Yes.
you. Thank you
Oh,
for
I
that.
mean, once we did that, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this before? But lesson learned for future. So
Should we
yeah.
should we tell them, should we confess about the one word that even though
Oh,
we're both from the Midwest, that we do pronounce differently?
yes. And
And
I
of
and I
course it
catch
was in there
myself
like
saying it.
200
Dad.
times. So I explained to Terry, I said, when I say the word dad, I say it in one syllable,
Yeah.
dad. And when Terry was doing the original recording of it, she would say it as I would say in 2 syllables. She would say dad.
Yeah.
And you confessed later that that was your mom's Kentucky across the river in Cincinnati's background seeping
It,
in. So
it's so true. And I caught myself. And what's so funny is my in-laws are from the mountains of North Carolina. And so all the cousin-in-laws and everybody, and I just love the way they talk because, and we've laughed about it and said that they make 2 syllable words out of 1 syllable words, like shut the door. It's not door,
yes.
doer. And so to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I picked up on the 2 syllable dad.
And now tell me, was that difficult to fix? I mean, I was praying that there was some electronic, I gave you like the time codes,
I
but I
loved
mean,
it.
can you sub in like you'd already recorded and then just drop, 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 or did you have to redo everything?
Yeah, I had to redo, well, I could redo sentences or sections depending on the flow because I go from pause to pause. And so I would go and listen because, sometimes my voice would be a little more excited if I was talking about something. Sometimes it would be a little more serious. And so I had to so I would go back and listen to that particular dad and be like, okay. And then I'd get myself into whatever that flow was. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'd re-record from pause to pause so that it didn't sound choppy by me just like all of a sudden sticking the right pronunciation in. So,
Well,
and I
this
think when you went back and listened, it was like, yes, okay,
Oh, they were all perfect the
okay,
second time around.
yay.
No pun intended on two. So I was reading an article just yesterday about Jill Whalen. Are you familiar with her? She's apparently like you need to check her out. Maybe have her as a guest here, but she's apparently one of the top in-demand narrators of books. Like she does Kristen Hanna's and Emily Henry's and so forth. And she was just saying that she was at a restaurant and this dog kept running over to her, and the owner was kind of embarrassed, saying like, I don't know why my dog never does this, but it feels very comfortable near you and keeps coming to you. And then somehow they landed on that she is the book narrator of books that this woman, the owner of the dog, listens to. And so the dog was like comfortable with her voice from hearing this hours and hours that she had just recently been playing a book. So
That is so cute. Like the dog was like, "Hey, I know you."
yes, like familiar voice there. And then what else did she say that was sort of interesting? She was talking about the trickiest thing to do is to get you tell me if this is true or not, to get the voices down. So like, and you did this so well. Like
Thank
I
you.
I I was so amazed. I don't know how you do it. Like you must be an actress in your other life or something. But like when you're saying like Sergey, my second husband, was from Russia. And so he spoke in like broken English with a deep voice and a Russian accent. And Teri just nailed it, you know. I mean,
Oh,
and then you had like my mom's voice and even my sister and just all these different characters, and she would just like nail it. You people have to get this audiobook. It's just to see see
I
how
love it so much. That
to,
just makes my heart smile because as like it was almost like I could hear Sergey in my head. And it like as your description of him was so perfect. And so I was like, okay, all right. I know we had a phone conversation about him. So I kind of like almost felt like I knew him and could feel that his voice in me. And then
yes,
like Scott's, I don't know if I got his, but it was
you
just
did.
again, I just kind of felt him. Um, and
The
then
ultimate nice guy. I think I
yes,
described him as an athletic Mr. Rogers, much younger, of
yeah.
course, but yeah. So,
Well, thank you so much. And it's fun. Like I truly enjoyed. It was just well, one, it was such a treat, like such an inspirational book. Obviously, the message is just so empowering. I loved how you brought in, at the beginning starts with a Disney character, but I'll let you talk about this. And it was just to watch your journey progress as you moved through and became your own hero. It was just so empowering. It's just such an empowering book. So yeah, so talk to folks about what inspired you to put this book out there.
well, the motivation is I describe it to people as a pandemic project. You know how you hear about blizzard babies? They come out like a lot of them arrive 9 months after a blizzard. Well, I'm noticing that there are a lot of books, especially memoir, that are coming out about 5 years after the pandemic. So I was part of that gold rush. And so my mom had recently had a stroke, and she suffered vascular dementia after that. And I started thinking, gosh, there are all these questions I wanted to ask her about her childhood or growing up or her situation in life. And she did recover. So I did get to ask her. I actually did a journal article about it. I have a doctorate, and it was part of a class I did for that. And so that I was thinking, and I had just become a grandmother. So I thought, okay. And I had two really cool grandmothers. And so to me, I thought, I'm going to write that book because I want the future generations, like my little granddaughter who just had joined us, to maybe know a little bit about my life and mainly the family story. So it started out like kind of a 1,000-piece puzzle of like this little family story and that and this and that. And of course, I knew more about myself than I knew about other people. So it was from my perspective. And then I started thinking I needed a framework for it, just because I'm sort of an organized person and I didn't like this random 1,000-piece thing. I needed to have some outline, some framework. I'm not a total pantser, more of an outliner. So I remembered that when I was working on my dissertation, it was on the topic of corporate rebranding. And most of the thousands of journal articles I had to read were kind of boring. They were about AT&T or General Motors or something and how they rebranded. And one was actually not a journal article, but it was in the New York Times by Peggy Ornstein, famous writer. And it was entitled Cinderella Ate My Daughter. And I thought that's kind of interesting. So I read it. And it was about how she was so worried about the Disney princess influence. Like she had taken her daughter to the dentist and there was like a little fairy princess, toothbrush and all these things. She thought, I want my daughter to be independent and not have all this princess stuff culture. So she did a lot of research and she found out that it is actually quite healthy. It's fine. It's normal. It's not going to damage your child to let them dress up in a little princess outfit and things like that. So I was reading that, but mainly she had interviewed Disney executives and talked about how they had to, in response to the women's movement, they had to transform the characters that they were portraying. And of course, they're doing it again now lately with Snow White and so forth. They continue to, but the women's movement forced them to, they couldn't come out with these Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty damsels in distress, waiting on the prince to save the day. So in the late 80s, early 90s, they came out with Belle, Ariel, Jasmine, and they still needed a prince to help out, but they were much more adventurous and so I thought that's kind of like me. Like so that became my framework because then by then they were coming out with the Tianas and the Moanas and the Meridas, and there's no prince even in the picture. I thought this is definitely me. That's my framework. So, as you know, each chapter starts out with a little cultural commentary about how these Disney princesses are evolving through the time, and it was tracking exactly with my life. So it's kind of like something happens in society that changes the script, like the women's movement, and then years later, it trickles down to real women like me and probably people or yourself. We're all transforming and meanwhile, the media or TV, like Mary Tyler Moore and then Claire Huxtable, my mom was June Cleaver. She literally wore pearls to vacuum, just like June did. So at some point, I realized I was not living my mom's fairy tale. I was living my own. And that's kind of why I ended up writing the book. Long, windy answer to your question, the motivation. Once I added that framework, I started talking to people about like, hey, I'm writing this book. The pandemic was still going on. And, neighbors would be like 10 feet apart or something or with a mask on. And they would say, I want to read that book. It was the Disney part that they connected to. That was what was universal and relatable. I think I'm onto something. So then I turned it into a publisher on a whim, just one. And it was She Writes Press. And they said, we love this, but we want you to get out the scissors and trim the parts out about the kids, heavy on the kids and the family and all that. The story is about you and your transformation, which again, I'd been using, the Disney princesses for the framework, but that really hit me home. I thought, oh my gosh, do I really want to write a book about myself? This wasn't how I started on this book journey. So I tell people I'm kind of the accidental author. I am not one of these people, like I'm in many authors groups, and they've all been planning this like their whole life and not me. I just kind of, like many other things, as you know, from narrating the book, sort of doors opened and I charged through and then it changed my life. So that's
Yeah.
what happened with the book.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And as I narrated and learned your story and became part of it, really, as I voiced it, um, I thought there was just those similarities and uh yeah, I had a thought and then it popped out of my head. But I do love the fact that just that growth journey. Like I too had married, gosh, my ex-husband, we were 18 and 19 when we met, and then married at 22 and 23. And mine was always when I would get so excited to get those Sears catalogs when I was a little girl, when
Yes.
they would arrive, those big thick Sears catalogs, and I
Yes.
would instantly
Yes.
flip to the baby section because I would daydream about which stroller I would buy and which crib, and then they didn't
Me
have car
too.
seats but pumpkin seats. And so like
Yes.
that was what I wanted to be, a mommy. Like, and I wanted to be a doctor. Like those were the two. I wanted to heal people. When people would say, I would tell people I wanted to heal people, and I wanted to be a mommy. But that was my thing, right? And Yeah.
Well, I mean, there were really, when I grew up there, and I think we're all the same, but there were sort of two career paths. I'm inspired that you thought you could even be a doctor, because basically most women were, you could be a teacher or you could be a nurse. And then those careers fit nicely within staying home once you had the kids. And that's all I knew. I mean, not one mom in our neighborhood worked. And by the way, I'm all for teachers. I mean, I am one now, I teach at universities, but I'm all for that profession and nursing as well. But I don't think we felt like we had permission. Our goal was to be a mom. Like, I had a great mom and I had a great dad. And I at least had a corporate example, even though I didn't know at the time I could be one like him. I at least was able to observe that path later when it opened up for women and I charged through that door. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm here to tell women, if you need permission to go write your own happy ending, I'm here to give you that. And that's what I hope the book inspires women to do. And I'm really fascinated by, I have at Washington State University, I have 6 different interns that have been helping me get going on social media because I clearly needed the help. And so they all wrote in there that every woman should read this book. And I didn't think that they were my demographic going in. I thought, it was like baby boomer women because they could relate to the musical references and other fun things like pumpkin seeds, in the book.
Right.
But they're like, no, like you're like a role model because there aren't as many out there, even for them. And they're inspired by seeing that you can have a career and you can have a family and your kids can turn out fine. Because again, if there might have been one woman that I knew that worked when I was growing up, but then my mom would tell me like, oh, well, her kids are just going to be terrible because she's ignoring them or whatever. So they put such heavy guilt on you that if you ever, have daycare, that your child will be behind everybody else's. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
My
my
mom
advice.
worked, she was in banking. Um, my dad's the one who struggled. Like he really struggled. He had mental health, a lot of mental health struggles, and he struggled to keep a job. But I was so blessed to have my grandma Kitty. Like she was my quote unquote babysitter. So she was the one that took care of us. And I called her my second mom because that was just such a blessing in my life. But one thing I wanted to tell you was again, as I narrated, like you were so good at pulling me in that I think it became very easy for me to then give voice to the book because your writing was just so skillful. Like I can still think about like as I read um like the cotton candy and your mom trying to get the bow in your hair and the like all of that I just became a part of it. And so it's I love those kinds of stories, those books that pull you in and like you're there, like you're at the state fair. And that's where I
Yes.
was.
Well, thank you. That's so nice. I think I try to write what I would describe as conversational style. So for me, the dialogue is super easy. Obviously you're trying to recreate dialogue that happened, centuries ago,
Yeah.
decades really. But it was just so easy. Like I can see myself back there. I can see that cotton candy stuck in my hair. My sister didn't want to hold my hand because I was always, the one with the hair out of place, or in that case, sticky hands. That was really cool. They were building a model home of like the future. And this is so interesting. Like they had the, what they call them, bomb shelters at this
Yeah.
house, and we were all dying to see it. They had a big open house and the radio station was there, and it was like a state fair going on. And the boys got to jump on the trampolines and the girls weren't allowed to because we had to wear dresses and they would show our underwear. But in the basement of that house, it had literally a sand pit in one corner because they were describing, they had a guy like narrating it, this is where you can live down here for like up to a year, or, a family of 4, no problem. And that's the toilet over there. And I, as a little girl, just thought that was fascinating. I wanted to have a basement like that too, you
Yeah.
know?
And your sister hightailed it out like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the flashbacks, like scenes like that, when you describe the editor that helped me kind of rearrange things to really make it work, She, instead of me going, I guess everybody wants to start out going chronologically, like, here's how I was at age 5 or whatever. She's like, no, 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 this is very boring. Like, you want to start out, and in my case, it was like start out with a car crash, sort of a
Yeah.
flash forward, and then I go to like landing at Purdue back in 1975 and all that. So that's kind of where the story begins, really. But then I still wanted to get in the part that shaped me, like the childhood. So we did that through these little flashbacks, but they're actually lessons. So most of them were what society had ingrained in my mom, and my mom was teaching me, like, this is what good girls do, we need to do it this way. So those are like, there's one per chapter, and I think a lot of people will relate to those. You probably did, Teri. And then what I found as I was writing it is later on, like the final chapters, they're actually, the lessons are from my kids to me, and they're parroting back things I taught them. And thank goodness they're good things.
Yeah.
So that they aren't like, my mom's was like, where, know your ring size,
Yeah.
or like, make sure you, before my wedding, it was like, make sure you put lotion on your elbows for like 6 months before the wedding so you won't have wrinkled elbows walking down the aisle. Like, that's the kind of stuff I was getting from my mom. And whereas my kids, the ones that they heard from me, thank goodness, they were like, be yourself, things like that. So I thought, oh my God, they got it. Like, maybe I didn't do so bad after all. So
I love it. Yesterday, my youngest son, so I have 3 kids, and so this is my middle kiddo. Um, he said to me, we were talking about I'm seeing an acupuncturist now to get the last of this rash under control, a little autoimmune response that I had. And he said to me, Mom, I've never met anyone in my life who doesn't give up and keeps on fighting and figuring it out and just keeps working. And he's like, it's just such an inspiration. And I just like, it brought me to tears. And I was like, Jacob, like, you just brought your mom's, like, you melted my heart a little bit. It's because it's like yeah, like the things you've been trying to teach them either in word or action, they notice and they're learning and they're picking up. And that's just, oh, to me, that's just such a
oh,
mom
it
moment.
is. That is a mom moment. Mine was kind of the epiphany. I call it the brave scene, if you know what I'm talking about, since you narrated.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter, she was in college by then. We were on the couch watching the movie Brave. I was actually in the middle of writing the book,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how it was going to end. I was just still, working on it. These things that do not happen overnight. Like, it takes months and months and months to write it. And she smelled the popcorn, and she comes downstairs, and the movie's almost over. So she's there for the popcorn. But I feel like I need to, as any mom would, I got to catch her up so she knows what's happening so she can jump into this movie. And it was Disney Pixar's Brave, written and directed by Brenda Chapman, who later blurbed my book. Like, she read my book and wrote about it. So but I, not at that time. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But anyway, so I'm telling Allie, my youngest, there's no prince yet, but Disney will bring him in before it's over. Don't worry. Well, the movie's just about over, right? And she watches it for all of like 30 seconds, and she says, Mom, there's no prince coming. And I said, Disney always brings a prince.
There's
There will be a
always a
prince.
prince.
There's a prince. Just don't worry. And then, like, the movie's like winding down, and now we're into the credits. And I said, don't worry. And I heard myself say this. This is one of those moments where you hear yourself and you're like, how stupid did I just sound there? And I said, Disney will bring the prince in the credits. And I thought, that was really dumb. And she turns to me and she says something to the effect of, Mom, you of all people, you're like one of the happiest people I know. There is no prince in your life. And you have done this on your own. Like, there's no prince coming. And so she, like your mom moment, she's basically telling me, like, you've done all this and you don't need a prince, and I don't need one either. I'll probably have one, but it'll be like a partnership, and this will all be great. And I'm just sitting there hearing this. This was my epiphany. Like, oh my God, Disney isn't going to bring a prince, and that's okay. And it's okay for me too. And so that became, a spoiler alert. That's like happens towards the end of the book. But and again, I just want women to have their own epiphany, or people really. Like, I think it's actually damaging if a guy, I have a son too, I have girl, boy, girl, and I don't want him to feel like it's all the pressures on him to be like Ward Cleaver and have to deliver everything. Like, you should be looking for that fun partner in life, to go on adventures with. So,
Yeah.
and he's found one, by the way. So,
Oh, good. And
yeah,
I just said that to this morning to somebody, that those relationships where there's each person has a leg in the pants, right? Like that's the way, instead of like, oh, he
I
wears the
love that.
pants, she wears the pants. No, we share the pants.
I love it. I've seen the visual now,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
three-legged race. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I just wanted to say, and you can talk about what you just talked about a second ago, the blurb that you got, was reading the reviews when I went to the landing page for the book, which is forgetthefairytale.net. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And oh my gosh, like I just kept reading through and reading through, and I was like, this is it's just so amazing. So, I mean, it certainly speaks to, the caliber of of your memoir, of your story. And one, I say kudos to you and applaud you for putting your truth out there, because, putting our truths out there is hard. Been writing my memoir for 15 years. It's been a work in progress, because I keep thinking the there's something else coming. Like there's a final piece to the puzzle here. And I think it's coming round. It's finally coming into fruition. So, but I know what it's like. And so I applaud you
Thank you.
bigly.
Well, they say that memoir, and usually memoir is not covering a span as long as mine does in the book, but it's all about what makes it different from a biography is it has a theme and it has an arc and it tells a story, not just again chronologically. So my theme was the one of transformation, like the Disney princesses, like many women of my generation. But most memoirs, I'm trying to not let you have an excuse here. They might be about, a summer trip to Europe or something like that. So it doesn't have to be, a whole big lifespan. You're making meaning out of your memories. And so
Yeah.
whatever that might be. And by the way, while I'm at it, I'm actually doing a panel in September here in Seattle that I'm really excited about. And we're trying to dispel the notion that a lot of bookstores and other places have that memoir doesn't sell. It's actually the third largest selling category of all books,
Wow.
but a lot of people don't get that. Um, and so I would like to, I'm going to propose at this panel, a little sneak preview, that we should rename the category, because I think memoir sounds kind of like, again, your grandmother went to Paris or something, a long time ago. And I think because people really like things like true crime, I think we should call it, true story or true stories or something like
True
that.
life.
True
True.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are hungry for the truth, and that's
Yes.
what is so hard about writing a memoir. Like, you have to have absolutely the truth and make sure it's your truth, but maybe different. Like, my sister read it and she said, well, I remembered that one thing just a tiny bit differently, but it's okay. That's her memory and I've got mine. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm all about rebranding, so to speak, the category so that it's more relatable to people and seems more friendly. And I think, when you look at Netflix and it says like true story before you watch, you want to watch that. Like, it makes it more interesting. So I just think that memoir kind of gets a bad rap partly because of the name. That's my
Yeah.
own 2 cents.
I get it. And I said I would totally be, if I saw true life, true story, whatever, I'd be like,
Yeah.
ooh, yeah, I want to know that. I want to understand. Yeah.
Well, if you
Um,
notice, if you walk into a bookstore right now, they might have a category called biographies. And if so, they might tuck, memoir down into the bottom shelf, like, and biographies is already in the back corner, unless you're Michelle Obama or something, and then your memoir is right up front. But that they don't really consider a memoir.
yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It is so
But if
true.
you put true stories, I think people would, migrate to it. Anyway, that's the marketing in me coming out.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you know, when you talked about, putting your truths, that was the one thing I said to my mom. My mom passed on my birthday in 2023, and one of the last things she said was, "It's time to put your book out there." And we had talked about on her last few years of life and her sobriety journey. I said, Mom, I'm writing this book and it's going to be our ugly truths, is what I told her. And she said, It's okay. People will learn from this. It's okay to put it out there. And so
Oh,
when I got her blessing, I was like, all right, okay, shoo.
that is wonderful. Yeah, I got my mom's too. My mom actually passed away almost exactly a year ago today to
No.
this recording date. And so it was my first Mother's Day without her and so forth. But she knew about the book because it obviously had started a long time ago. But that journal article I mentioned, one of them that I had published, she had it printed off and she rode around in a little scooter in her assisted living facility and it had a little basket on it, like on a bike. And she kept that in there. And then I would only see her when I'm there visiting, which was frequently, but she'd stop if I was there and introduce me to one of the other residents. And she would demand that they call me Dr. Miller. I'm an academic doctor, but not, medical. But they
Yeah.
would immediately start telling me, she's like, she's the one that wrote the article. And she'd wave the thing out of her little basket. But then they'd start telling me their ailments, and
Oh,
of course they're like half hard of hearing. And so I would try to correct them, like, I'm not that kind of doctor. And then after a while, I just went with it, like, oh, that's nice, or oh, have you tried this, or
yeah. Put
whatever.
an
So
ice pack on it.
yeah, it was easier that way. But she would be so proud. She was just so proud of all of her kids, really. So
Oh, that's so precious. My mom did the same thing. Because I have a YouTube channel with this podcast on it. One time when I was over visiting her in her little retirement village, and I said, we were talking about the podcast because I had her on twice before she passed on the
oh,
show. And
great.
so I said, well, Mom, it's on YouTube. I'll pull it up on your TV. We had installed a Roku, and so I was
Oh,
able to stream for her and pulled it up. Well, then anytime I was there and somebody came in, she'd be like, "This is my daughter Teri, and she has her own TV show."
wow. I love it.
I would
Yes.
just go with it. I'd be like, YouTube, yes, thank you.
Yes. Dr. Deb and Teri, the TV star.
Teri,
Here
the
we
TV
are.
star, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Well, I certainly want to give you an opportunity before we close out here to share any insights, any words of wisdom, anything that we didn't get to touch upon.
Well, what I really want to say I say women, but it's really for people, is that you are in charge of your own happiness. Studies, research shows it's 40% individual. It's 50% is just the environment and whatever, and 10% is the circumstance. So basically, it's I said that wrong. 50% is hereditary, 40% is individual, and 10% is circumstance. Most people think that it's heavy on the circumstance, like, oh, I just got a bad deal or I lost my job or something. No, like 40% is up to you. So people need to take charge of that 40% and drive your happiness. And the other piece, and this is really for your audience, is that the number one driver, research shows, of happiness is having a community. Now, that might be, it's however you define it. It might be you and your dog. It might be you and your listeners. It might be your family. It might be my author group. It just doesn't matter. But people are the happiest when it's shown when they respond, when they're connected with their community. So I'm hoping that people, if they happen to read this book, will be inspired by it and know that they're responsible for their happiness and that they'll go out there and start rewriting their own happy ending like I did, and send me a note about it. I would love to hear about it too. So thank you, Teri, for having me here today. Again, you're just my voice out in the world, and I'm so happy that we found each other and got to work together on this project.
Yes. Well, again, I feel honored. I feel blessed to have been able to give voice. I'm excited to launch it out into the universe. I know the big launch is coming June the
June 24th.
24th. I want to say 23rd, but June 24th. Okay. And yeah, I'll put it out for those of you who are connected on Facebook. I'll put links out there for then. I have been putting the audiobook link out, so I have been putting it out there, but when the big launch comes, it'll be a big deal. So yay.
Good. And you can find me on Instagram too, because my name is common, Deb Miller. I did everything, and this is the only book I'm ever going to write. So I did everything under the title of the book, forgetthefairytale.net, as you mentioned, Forget the Fairy Tale on Instagram. And my daughters talked me into doing TikTok, and I did the first video just a couple days ago, and it already had 6,700 hits. It's just like amazing to me. So
Can I
I don't
share
know.
that on my Facebook page?
Please do. Why not?
Okay.
Let's get a few more views. It's actually a tour of my home here.
Which is
Start where
gorgeous.
start
Yeah.
where you are and use what you have. I don't know if the younger generation has heard of 73 questions with Vogue. I had never heard of it until they told me. And they said, we're going to do like 20 questions with Deb Miller instead of 73 questions with like one of the Kardashians or Taylor Swift. So basically they do a home tour and they're asking you all these questions real fast. So that it's a takeoff of that if you're below age 30, you probably know what that means. I certainly didn't until I did my homework on it, but I did go along with it, and it got a bunch of eyeballs on this video. So now everybody knows where I live. I live in an enchanted forest somewhere outside of Seattle. So that's where it's at.
I love it. I love it. And I did the same thing. I'm telling you, Deb, when you sent me the video, I watched it right before coming on because you had just sent it to me. And I was like, what does 73Q mean? I was like, I'm going to have to research that. And now I know. So,
Now you know. Well, I think it says something like not quite 73 questions. Thank God, that would have taken like forever. And
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
they
Yeah.
wanted it 1 minute, so it goes fast. Hope you
Well,
enjoy it.
awesome. Well, this has just been such a treat. I've loved meeting you face to face. I know we've connected via phone and text and voicemail and all that fun stuff, but this has just been wonderful. Thank you for being here and for putting your truth out into the world. It's just an amazing book. Everybody go download your audiobook copy or buy a print copy on June 24th.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's TERI, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.